So now that roughly a few days have passed since UFC 305, now would be a good time to do a bit of a deep dive into the event, some of the things that we learned, some questions that were asked, and some that were answered as well. I wanted to use this opportunity to kind of look at those stuff and talk further about this event, particularly the main card. I feel like we learned quite a few different things in this event, starting with DDP's method to the madness. Um, so I backed DDP to win. I had DDP beating Adesanya, but what was interesting about this fight was, as I was going back and watching some of the tape, was that I've always thought DDP's distance management was kind of trash. And if I always mentioned the Whitaker fight because he was throwing he was throwing counter shots against Whitaker, and he was nowhere near distance. And so, first of all, people are going to ask like, "What's distance management? Why do you say that a lot?" What that means is literally just the management of distance, the distance between you and your opponent, the range, right? So some people, fighters typically throw out like a jab, they'll throw out like a leg kick, a teep, anything like that to kind of gauge the distance between themselves and their opponent. And DDP kind of doesn't really do that as well. His jab is mainly there, I would say, less for distance management and more for he throws really heavy jabs. He dropped Whitaker with a jab, right? And so he was throwing like counter shots against Whitaker, even Strickland, where he wasn't anywhere near the range and the shots weren't even close to landing. And so while I had DDP beating Adesanya, that was one thing that really had me a bit frustrated going into it. And as I was watching the fight, I saw it again. But he still beat Adesanya, and Adesanya is one of the best distance managers in the UFC as far as his ability to understand range. And DDP did that with just crazy blitz. I mean, come on now. Like the blitz he was doing weren't even like the technique wasn't even there. It wasn't even like it was a crazy amount of footwork was going on. It was mainly just him rushing in. And it begs the question: is he the strongest fighter in the UFC? I mean, his grappling is really strong. We know that, and he did take Adesanya down after hurting him and submit him. But just overall strength, his overall ability, his durability. He took a spinning elbow to the face. He was still there. So I think this performance really asked a question: just how tough is DDP? And the answer is probably toughest in the UFC because I am a full blown believer. Again, I went into this fight expecting him to win, but he surprised me as well. I still think Adesanya beat him on the feet if you look at it like that, but it doesn't really matter. This is MMA, and when it comes to mixing up the martial arts, DDP was the better man this night. And yeah, I'm really impressed with him. And there is a method to the madness. So now we move on and we talk about some of the matchups that are available for Israel Adesanya. So first and foremost, I think it's worth mentioning that I thought Adesanya looked good. He was a bit sloppy, as was DDP, as the fight went on. It seemed like they were really slowing down, and the pace didn't look that insane. But you never really know what's going on with the fighters. But overall, I think he still looked good, and there are several different matchups available for him that all make sense. So for starters, Paulo Costa. So we do know Paulo Costa and Adesanya fought back in September, I think it was, of 2020. If these two end up fighting, so it would probably earliest be like December or maybe early next year. It would have been well over 4 years, so I think enough time has passed between them. It's kind of crazy in hindsight how since they fought in 2020 of September, Adesanya has become probably one of the greatest middleweights of all time, and in that same time period, Costa has just drifted. He's had some impressive performances, some fun fights, but in general, he's kind of drifted. But I think this would be a fun fight because the uh, the personality clashes. The press conference would be hilarious, and I would love to see this in a 3 rounder. Adesanya, I don't think he's had a 3 round fight in like since 2019. So I would love to see, maybe even before that, like 2018. So I'd love to see these two in a 3 round fight just to see how Adesanya would do in that. Would he be a bit more aggressive than he typically is? And I think Costa would love it. Costa's been asking for this fight for a long time, and the UFC are obviously they believe in Costa, right? Which is why they haven't cut him despite his antics. And if you want Costa to leapfrog everybody and get a title shot, you feed him Adesanya, you give him Adesanya, and you hope he wins. So I think that's a win-win matchup right there. Then the winner of Imavov Allen. So uh, I don't think the winner of Imavov Allen deserves a title shot for the simple fact that there's like a big log jam currently in the middleweight division, right? You have Strickland, who's definitely going to be next for the title, and then Whitaker and Chimaev have made a better a better argument for why they deserve to fight for the belt next. And so these two are going to be waiting around for probably a year as DDP Strickland fight. And of course, if Strickland wins, they might run it back for the third time. Then you have Whitaker Chimaev. I think these two need a fight afterwards, and I think the winner's gonna be Imavov. So you do Imavov Adesanya or Allen Adesanya, and Adesanya will jump on the fight because beating either of those young up and coming guys will definitely put him back into title contention. So he will take the fight, and then there's Whitaker Chimaev's winner or even loser, but I'm gonna go the winner of that fight. Again, Strickland DDP is next. That fight's probably not happening until January or February of next year. And by the time they make a turnaround, they'll be fighting Whitaker Chimaev sometime in like mid of next year. So around like, again, July, August time period. So the winner of Whitaker Chimaev is going to be waiting around for about a year. So, and if it's Chimaev, he'll probably be wanting that. But I think that you could make the argument that the winner of this should fight Adesanya. Whitaker has beaten everybody in the division but Adesanya and DDP. And while he did arguably win the second fight against Adesanya, I'd still say do him versus Izzy third time just in case. Because, again, DDP Strickland 2 is going to happen, and then they might run it back a third time if Strickland somehow wins. If not, then just ignore this. But then you got Chimaev, and I don't think a win over Whitaker is enough to dictate a title shot, even if he did beat Kamaru Usman on 1 week's notice, and Usman almost won that fight. So I'd say Adesanya versus the winner of this is very plausible as well. We move on now to one of the things we learned about Gamrot, which is there's just one thing holding him back, and I think that's his heart. So I think he gave the fight away. I don't think it was a robbery. First round him, second round Hooker. Third round was a give up. It was who was going to come out and really prove themselves. And I was shocked by just how little heart he showed because, you know, he's a young guy. If he had won this, he would arguably be next for the winner of Arman and Makhachev, especially since he's already beaten Arman. And it blew me away how he basically gave this third round up because his defensive boxing looked great. He looked really good on the back foot. He was tagging Hooker here and there. It was pretty close, but the question was who was going to make that exclamation mark? Who's going to put that point out there that I deserve to win this round? And it was not him. He shot some of the laziest takedowns, and not only that, he would shoot him, he would miss him, and he would just stay in position, and Hooker would land like a shot or two, which probably didn't look good to the judges. And then you had the fact that at the last 10 seconds of the fight, it's been really close. The round's been really close. Who's going to make, again, the exclamation point? It was Hooker. He landed a shot that was probably the best shot of the round, and he won himself to fight. And so I'm really confused by this performance from Gamrot. I feel like he was up there as somebody who would be fighting for the title very soon, and I'm very disappointed in that. He's got the skills, he's got the grappling, his striking is improving. He's just missing this one thing. He needs to grit it down. He needs to understand that, you know, this is what it comes down to, fighting some of the guys at the top level. You're not going to be able to just tire them out like this. You're going to have to keep shooting. You're going to have to keep striking. You're going to have to be sharp the entire way through. So I feel like that's one thing that Gamrot is lacking. With that being said, I also want to say he would not have been a problem for Makhachev. I thought he would. I know some people were saying that after the Poirier fight between him and Makhachev because Gamrot was the one who's doing those grappling training with Poirier. And so the idea was if Gamrot was able to help Poirier get to that level, just how good is Gamrot actually? But on the feet, I think he would get crushed by Makhachev. I think Makhachev's the best striker and grappler in the division. And he would have, you know, don't get me wrong, Hooker's grappling defense is phenomenal. But we saw what Makhachev did to him. I don't think Gamrot would have any success in the grappling against Makhachev. And on the feet, he would have gotten put out. He gets basically dropped in every fight anyways. So I want to see Gamrot maybe improve on this, and he'll be up there fighting for the belt soon if he does. As far as what's next for Hooker, Hooker has a lot of good matchups for him. You know, he's right back up there. He's coming off of 2 huge wins, Jalen Turner and now Gamrot, 2 young guys as well. And so the question is, well, what do we do with him next? Well, you have 3 big fights for him next. You have Oliveira, which is the fight Hooker's been asking for. I know after the fight was done, he said he wants to fight Oliveira. Why not? You have Gaethje, who's coming off of a huge KO loss, and he's probably coming back. So he got KO'd in April. He might be coming back either end of this year or even sometime next year. And so that fight is available. By the time Hooker comes back, Gaethje will be probably coming back as well. So you can do that. And then the Poirier rematch, I say that because both men have been asking for this fight. Poirier has been, he has one fight left. I think he wants to do his final retirement fight, and he's been asking for the rematch with Hooker for a while. Even though he won, I'm not sure why. Why not just fight a new, fresh opponent? But he wants this fight. Hooker would probably take the fight. Poirier is ranked in the top 5, so a win over him would immediately put Hooker in for fighting for the belt next, which you already know is what he wants. So there's 3 big fights for him. It's kind of crazy in 2024 that Hooker might be fighting for the belt soon. It's kind of crazy to say that, but it's very well possible. And all 3 of these fights are big, so give him either of them. And I'm going to end this off with talking about the flyweight division. The flyweight division needs a tonic boost, and I feel like the tonic boost came in the form of Kai Kara France's heavy hands. So I had Kai Kara France winning. I chose him to win, and for reasons like this, I think he's very exciting. And people are going to say stuff like, well, Urseg is really good, and he is. But one thing about Urseg, I think his biggest win is Matt Chanel. I think that's the guy. And then people will say, well, he arguably beat Pantoja. Fair play, but so stylistically speaking, Pantoja was an easier fight, I think, for Ursig than a Kai Kara France's. And one of the things about Kai Kara France that I really like is the fact that he, as his name suggests, don't blink. He's going out there and he's trying to finish his opponents, which in flyweight is kind of rare. And like I mentioned before, this division really desperately needs a tonic boost, and they got it in the form of Kai Kara France. I could not be more happy that he won. And now that Kai Asakura is signing as well, the flyweight division might finally be getting a bit more excitement, because for a while now, it just seems like this division's a bit stuck in the mud. Every division's got something really fun going on, right? O'Malley's taking over bantamweight, but you still got Petr Yan in the background. You got Merab, who's just annihilating everybody. And at featherweight, you have Ilya Tupuria, who's the new guy who just knocked out Volkanovski. Volkanovski's still there. You got Max Holloway. You've got other up-and-comers, lightweight onwards. But it feels like flyweight's just kind of been stuck for a while and hasn't been really interesting. But I feel like Kai Kara France might just be the guy to kind of bring interest back into this. So I'm happy he won. Feel bad for Urseg. Can't wait for Kai Asakura. And I'm a big fan of Pantoja. I know a lot of people really like to disrespect him. I think he at times is kind of okay with just laying on a guy's back, but he's really exciting when he wants to be. And I think him versus Kai Kara, by the way, Pantoja has beaten basically everybody at the top at flyweight. He's beaten, I'm pretty sure he's beaten Kai Kara France at Ultimate Fighter, I think it was. He beat Brandon Moreno. He's beaten Brandon Royval. He's beaten everybody. He's beaten Urseg. So, but that fight with Kai Kara France was the most, I would say, like, his fights with these other guys I just mentioned were the most recent. He hasn't fought in Kai Kara France in a while. So it's either France or it's Kai Asakura. And then there's Albazi, but Albazi suffered a neck injury. He was supposed to fight at the Mexico card, I think it was, which is when Brandon Royval, I think, main evented. I'm pretty sure that was a card. So he has a neck injury anyways. I don't know when Albazi will be fighting next, but if you really want people to care about flyweight, I think you got to do either Kai Asakura, who's a big signing, have him fight Pantoja, or you got to do Kai Kara France. So either of these fights makes sense. Looking forward to both of them, regardless of which one the UFC does. I think the flyweight division desperately needs it. So I'm going to end it there. UFC 305, we learned quite a few different things, and I'm interested and really excited to see where all these different divisions and all these different fights go next. So, yeah. That's all I had to say for today, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.